What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to get back in the swing. We're kind of getting to a point with all of our pool builds this year and ICF jobs that I'm going to have a little bit of time to create some cool content. As a lot of you guys know, I'm going on a pretty neat trip to Spain and Dubai for some pool-related stuff and concrete stuff next month. But in the meantime, I am going to try to get a few more review videos done. I had stopped doing that months and months ago. I think the last one I did was my element video, but there's a whole playlist that you guys can see on this video that will link you to all the other review videos I did. But I think I'm going to at least get one done for Nudura, Amvic, TF Systems, which is vertical ICF, and this guy here today. A lot of you guys have probably, if you watch any of the social media stuff, have seen people posting about polyurethane ICF blocks. There's a couple different companies doing them, and I didn't really know a ton about the companies. I've got a lot of experience with polyurethane foam in the marine side of things. I've built a couple boats and use a lot of pourable marine foam, which this is a very, very similar cousin to. And so I kind of knew about its attributes, but didn't really know how it would work with ICF. But a few months ago, Dustin at Monolith, this is a Monolith block system. Dustin at Monolith reached out to us through Patrick, our partner, and Patrick had set up a meeting. Dustin's from LA, that's where he's based out of, but his family lives right around me. So when he was here visiting a few months ago, he met up with me and answered a lot of my questions. And I said, man, if you send me some samples, I'd love to check them out and do a review video for you. And I've had him for a little while. He sent them at like the busiest part of summer, so I've had him for a little while, but just now getting ready for the vid. Let's just dive right in. Polyurethane block. So it's not EPS or expanded polystyrene like almost every block you're familiar with. Every other block I've reviewed, EPS. It's the white kind of bead looking foam. Big difference is the way that they are produced, I would say, is the first big difference. EPS, the E stands for expanded polystyrene. So they have a mold and they inject a bunch of these beads in. They're tiny, they're like the grains of sand, they're kind of hard and slippery. And then they inject steam at a high rate, high pressure, and that steam gets the polystyrene beads and expands them, kind of like popcorn. And that glues them all together and creates styrofoam or EPS in the mold. The one thing that does is it's very, very fast. The cycle time, basically, it shoots the steam in, and within a few seconds, the block is done. The big downside is anytime you're dealing with expanded polystyrene forms, especially forms that you also have to have a plastic piece molded inside of it, those molds are incredibly complex. The steam injection ports, I mean, it looks like literally like something Elon Musk would be trying to launch to Mars. I mean, these molds are very complex. They're also very expensive. Tooling up for making an ICF block can be millions of dollars. These blocks are a two-part polyurethane foam, very similar to the spray foam you would see in your house. What they call open cell that goes in walls, that's usually half pound. If you hear them talk about pound rating, that's a cubic foot of this foam. If you sprayed a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch cube, it would weigh half a pound. That's open cell. You can put your finger through it. It's soft. Then you'll talk about closed cell. They'll spray it on a lot of metal building roofs, other things, and it feels hard. That is 2 pounds per cubic foot. And they actually have densities way beyond that for structural stuff. They'll build columns and other things that mimic masonry. But 2 pound is where you get into kind of more of structure. If you guys are following along with my camper build, I use pourable boat building foam to insulate my camper. I just basically build cardboard forms, pour it in there, and then sand it off to match my profile. So I've worked with this foam a lot, and I like it for a couple reasons we'll get into. But what they do is they're going to inject that two parts, part A, part B, and it will mix right at the nozzle right as it goes into this form. So there's no need for all that steam injection. So these are going to be much, much easier to produce. Let me see if I can say this right. Easier to produce. Molds are cheaper, but the cycle time is way longer, extensive compared to EPS. Each one of these blocks sits in the mold for about 6 minutes. which isn't ideal if you're trying to make 1 million of them. But because you can make more molds for a lot less money, then that's how they plan to combat that. They're just going to have a lot more molds. They're still kind of tooling up to that. They're also making plants all over the place to make it easier to ship. Same thing that all the EPS guys have done over the last 30 years to really get ubiquitous. So anyway, that's the big difference in how these are made. Now let's get into why they wanted to go polyurethane, and then I'll get into the actual design of the block. So polyurethane has a couple of advantages. I will say this, these blocks are a little more expensive than EPS on average. They're a couple dollars a square foot more than what we sell Element for because of that slow cycle time. I will tell you that Dustin had told me that they are actively seeking a high degree of automation to bring some of that down. So that's just a little aside that he gave me that I thought was interesting, because I did see that as a future issue as they grow, is how much can they keep up. But automating is probably the answer at this point. First thing that these have that are going to be really big, like in the California area, where we sell a lot of ICF, is they come with a Class A fire rating. Just to give you a little demonstration, if this thing will still light, it's about this foam it'll kind of spark up, but it really won't melt. It just chars, kind of like, it looks like a marshmallow you left on the fire a little too long making s'mores. If you do that with EPS, you're just going to melt a hole in it just rapidly. It just goes away. It just disappears, okay? Now, the good and the bad of that. I will tell you that I've got a video coming out talking about Honor Topku's U stucco. If you guys remember that, I'll link the video from Last World of Concrete. He has a Class A fire rated that's already passed UFP 285 in California, stucco. And I'm about to make a video with a 1/2 inch of his stucco on Element ICF, and I'm going to hit it with an 800,000 BTU Eco Finish machine, and I'll leave it on there for minutes and minutes and minutes. It's not going to hurt the foam, guys. So assuming you're using a cladding that is, smart in a fire-prone region, any ICF can be easily fireproofed. That said, this stuff is fireproof right out of the box, and I would consider that a benefit. There's another thing that they talk about, their moisture intrusion rate is almost 0. If polyurethane foam does get impregnated with water, it takes pressure and time to do that. It's pretty much locked in forever, and it will lose R value because of that. However, because of the way this stuff's molded, it's got a very smooth skin to it, and they claim that it has a nearly 0% intrusion rate, and it does come with a higher R value than EPS forms. So assuming you keep drainage around the buried portions of the foundation and you waterproof it proper and all that, I think it's kind of got a cool benefit. It's also hard, like it's a little bit harder than EPS, so it's going to take backfill. Depending on how you waterproof it, it's going to be less likely to be damaged in backfill. Obviously, we always promote putting dimple board around the foundations anyway, but that's one of its big things, is that it's going to be super duper moisture resistant. EPS can be impregnated, but the cool thing about EPS, the water can then leave it again once the ground dries out. So EPS has a less of a permanent issue if it gets impregnated, but this is very, very difficult to impregnate, I guess is the way I would say that. And then one thing they say is this is more pest resistant. You guys, I'm on record saying that I don't think that pests are a big deal in any ICF. There's no nutritional value in ICF. You're by far reducing the food source for any wood destroying pests by not having any wood on the outside. I think it's mostly a myth of the lumber lobby, with a few exceptions where just people were really asking for trouble, letting ivy grow all over their house and whatnot. But anyway, that's one of the big things that they talk about. It's also very, very rigid. I don't know if I can try to bow this down, but I can only deflect these blocks maybe a 1/2 inch. They're very rigid. They claim that will reduce the need for bracing. You'll have less braces. I think the way we've braced stuff up every 6 feet with Zonts and Zuckles, we have had incredibly good luck with we've had incredibly good luck with straight walls. We're kind of known for having, I've had multiple drywall guys say, man, I was always afraid of ICF. These are the straightest walls because of the Zont, because of FabForm system. I don't think I would just automatically reduce the number of braces, even if they say I could, because they're rigid. But anyway, that's just an aside. But they do claim that it does reduce the need for bracing somewhat. And again, the other big positive I've already mentioned is that they are working to automate and expand their production to be more accessible. I think right now probably if there was a knock on it, it's that there's only a couple companies doing this, and they're not gigantic yet. I mean, that's true of every ICF company at first. So I like to see, more innovative stuff under the ICF tent. But I think that would be, one of the things that they're working towards that's a positive. Let me get into, I always have at least a couple negatives that usually are not a big deal, because if I'm reviewing a product, it means I typically like it. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of bad things to say. The first thing, and it's funny because when I asked him, I was actually a little worried I might offend him. But there's an ICF company that didn't innovate, that just came out with a new block. They basically just tried to knock off Fox blocks and did it in a way that was, honestly, they cheaped up a few things. They have a corner that has a one web offset, 8 inches. And I view that as a massive mistake. Most ICF brands would call that a bastard joint or a common seam, even though it's offset. It's only offset by one web. Like Fox Blocks wants clips, so does that other brand. But if you only have one web of overlap, that clip isn't, the vertical clip is not really doing what it's designed to do. The only way to get to a 16-inch offset would be to chop one of these blocks off and create waste. Like I take my first straight, and my next straight will only be 8 inches longer, and that's going to continue all the way across the wall. So I brought that up to Dustin, and I mean, he did not say anything. He didn't really give away any trade secrets. He just said, I don't think that'll end up being our final design. It works fine because ours are more rigid. I wouldn't want to see a one web offset in EPS, but with our polyurethane, because it's more rigid, it's okay. But I got a feeling they're probably kind of working on that corner design a little bit. Another negative, I've been consistent about this with Superform and a couple of the other ones, it's 12 inches high. That creates more layers. Like, we have a warehouse coming up that's going to be over 20 feet high. That adds many rows of stacking, just a lot of hours of time by not having at least a 16-inch block, to keep going up. But again, it's not a big knock on it. It's just that if I was doing a bunch of it, I would love this block to be a little bit bigger. From an aesthetic standpoint, you see these are like kind of light, but if you see a lot of these in photos outdoor, these things have been wrapped in kind of a UV plastic until today. They kind of get tanned. They kind of turn dark, and in a splotchy way. You'll see them, they look almost burnt orange after being in the hot sun for a few weeks. It's not actually hurting the integrity of it. It's just, as an aesthetic, I think ICF, I've always told a lot of people, we do all these training events, and I'm like, guys, you do your first ICF job. If it's a house, if it's a pool, it's in the ground, people may not know what's going on. It's in a backyard. But if you're doing a house, you got this huge white billboard. Your dance card fills up just because if you just are friendly to the people who stop by. And I don't think this is maybe quite as attractive while it's up there because it's kind of looking, a little burnt. However, I mean, that's just a little aside I've noticed is I get a lot of work just by building good work out there that looks awesome. You get these big, cool, big styrofoam walls that are just up in the air. People take notice. And I'm not saying they wouldn't take notice on this. It's just I asked him about that because I'm like, man, these blocks are a lot prettier than what I keep seeing pictures of on the socials. But it's in the sun, they'll start to kind of darken. So anyway, they do have a clip system, which again, I've always been a proponent. A lot of people have talked bad about clips. They use that. All the Nudura guys will say that's what's wrong with Fox and all that. I've always thought clips are fine. I have kind of revamped that as we've sold a lot of Element this year. And I've been up against a Fox Blocks quote, and there will be $700 to $1,000 of clips on a house. And ours don't have any clips. So even at the same price, we're $1,000 cheaper, and we're usually a little cheaper anyway. These have a clip, but if you can see how close the webs sit together, because they go right to the top, the clip is really small. He said they're inexpensive. I'll be honest, I didn't get a price to know what inexpensive is, but the Fox clips and the clips that work with all the other brands, they'll be like $1 to $1.50 each, and you'll use hundreds of them. So while I don't think it's a bad thing structurally, I always liked the connectivity of it. I do think it's becoming more of an antiquated item that there's a lot of brands you don't need it. Your Stronghold, Nudura, Element, and others that have, engineered connectivity into their block. So I wish that had that. I wish it had a connectivity built into it, some kind of a zip clip or something. And the only other thing is these do give off gas off VOCs. He said just right at the beginning, I'm just going to tell you that I would assume most municipalities will see polyurethane foam, and if it's not covered by drywall in the inside of your house, they're going to want you to put the intumescent paint on it to seal in any of that potential off-gassing, whether or not it's relevant. Like, we live in a county that we have proven that the Nudura that had been used on a house we did years ago was completely inert. We had letters from engineers and Nudura and everything else, and the county just said, foam, cover it. And, cost us thousands of dollars in paint. So just know that that's a probable thing in a lot of municipalities. That said, guys, I really like the idea of the polyurethane block. I like the fire resistance. I like the higher R value. I have some really interesting thoughts about it that I'll talk about in later videos as we get to this winter and really get more into detail. The guy, like I said, this guy, his information is in the description, by the way. His name's Dustin, and Dustin will be in town. His, like I said, he's got family in Missouri. When he's here, I may sit down with him again and just discuss some of the future things that he's working on doing. Just, I like to know everybody in the industry that's doing cool things. But this is Monolith ICF, guys. I think it's got a ton of potential going forward as they grow into a viable company that's doing a lot of ICF business. Like I said, you guys are already seeing a lot of their stuff on the socials. So Monolith ICF, holler at Dustin.